I want you to listen to this story today, okay? We're going to go through this with John Solomon. I want you to go through this story, listening and remembering all the reporting we've done here on this show that you guys were with us for on the IRS and how their investigation into Hunter Biden was slow-rolled to the point that most of the statutes of limitation expired. Remember, we found that out from those two whistleblowers. It was, I think, 2 years ago. I was down here at the Jersey Shore, and we were talking to those two whistleblowers who gave us their first interview and told us all about how the DOJ had slow-rolled their investigation to the point where they all expired, the statutes of limitation against Hunter Biden for his tax evasion and his sketchy scheme overseas, taking all this money from, Burisma in Ukraine and elsewhere. Well, guess what? What Solomon is revealing today is the same story, different players. He's reporting now that the FBI Director, Kash Patel, has just uncovered a memo that appears to show top DOJ and FBI officials obstructing an investigation into allegations of corruption against Bill and Hillary Clinton's family foundation, known as the Clinton Foundation. That back in 15 and 16, the FBI was actually interested in the Peter Schweitzer book, Clinton Cash, and actually said, you know what, there's something there, and we better start looking into it, and had no less than 3 different field agencies, part of the FBI, looking into it. But they got shut down by Andrew McCabe, Deputy Director of the FBI under Obama, and Sally Yates, Deputy AG under Loretta Lynch. Obama's top people at DOJ and FBI said, no, it's Hillary Clinton. We're not doing that. Same way they said, no, it's Hillary Clinton. We're not doing that when it comes to investigating or seeing through the investigation on her homebrew server and the email scandal. Remember, we've been talking about the documents that showed Loretta Lynch allegedly saying she would make sure it didn't go too far. So Hillary Clinton twice protected, according to these documents, for her utter corruption, her criminal corruption. That's how it looks in these papers. Meanwhile, Donald Trump gets indicted twice by Joe Biden's DOJ Special Counsel Jack Smith for allegedly having classified documents at Mar-a-Lago that he as president had the right to have, and for the January 6th nonsense on the Capitol. Okay, he gets him indicted twice. They rushed to throw the legal system at Donald Trump, and with Hillary Clinton, time and time again, just like with Hunter Biden, those in power work together to protect their favorite Democrats. It's disgusting. And now we're really getting the details of a general foundational story we did know. But as with so many of these reveals lately, we're getting names, we're getting specific titles, and we're finding out exactly who was standing in the way of the wheels of justice turning against a Dem. Former President Obama's Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates is even quoted in the Solomon release now as saying, shut it down. Sally Yates is a name we've heard many times over the years. She's a party loyalist. She's been painted by the left as some sort of a heroine for standing up against Donald Trump. She's a partisan hack, and I'm embarrassed she shares my son's name. Here to explain it now, John Solomon, the founder of Just the News. John, welcome back.
Yeah, good to be with you, Megyn. You laid it out perfectly. That's the dual system of justice we just lived under for the last 10 years.
It's shocking. So take us through the latest reveal.
So people, I think, will become more familiar over the next few weeks as we continue to dig through what we now know and what we're about to learn, that March of 2016 is a moment of great peril for the Democratic Party. Donald Trump's essentially secured the nomination. They have a populist that looks like the Brexit movement in America, and they're mortified. Hillary Clinton is still trying to crank down her email scandal, and the Justice Department now knows 2 things have happened simultaneously. One, that 3 separate FBI offices, New York, Little Rock, and Washington field office, so two powerhouses, and then Little Rock, have all predicated investigations looking at pay-to-play allegations against Hillary Clinton. Some of that predication was based on Peter Schweizer's great book, Clinton Cash. Some of that predication was based on a couple of stories I wrote back in 2015 for the Washington Times. And so they have a confidential human source in one of those cases. They have multiple documents. They have some video and audio footage, and they believe they have a true predicated investigation looking at criminal pay-to-play. Basically, you pay the foundation, you get something from Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. It's a mortal threat, way more mortal than the complicated email scandal, which you can always blame on negligence. And at the same time that's happening, it's very important to remember, and I'm going to show people these emails soon. These are emails that the Justice Department's had for a long time. Hunter Biden's emails and his records of his business partners have been subpoenaed, and Hunter Biden and his lawyers are panicked. They're going to discover that Hunter Biden was welching on his taxes. He was not paying taxes on Burisma, the money he had gotten in Ukraine. So I want to set that stage because March of 16 is a moment of calamity. March through May, there are multiple Democratic scandals that potentially put Donald Trump in a much better position to win the nomination because the Democratic Party is going to look like the party of corruption. And it's in that moment that Sally Yates steps into the void and says, shut it down. And think about this. Donald Trump's on the campaign trail chanting, lock her up. It turns out the FBI has some evidence that might lock her up if they can get through the official prosecution. And the answer back from Barack Obama's Justice Department is shut it down. They form a protection racket around Hillary Clinton. And as we know from the IRS whistleblowers, eventually a protection racket around Hunter Biden. And then they pivot and they start to legitimize a false investigation against Donald Trump. That is the spring and summer of 2016. And there are just some remarkable dates that we all need to remember because they are going to be seminal to the conspiracy. The first is January 6, 2016, January 6, 2017, 4 years before the January 6th that Democrats like to talk about. It's on that day that the Intelligence Committee assessments released, and it's the day before when Sally Yates is in a meeting with the president and the vice president, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, concocting how they can keep pursuing former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn when the FBI has just cleared him of any criminal wrongdoing. It is at January 5th and 6th that create the distrust that ultimately boils over on January 6, 2021. And then on July 5th, 2016, the day that James Comey walks out and waves a magic wand without the legal authority to do so and clears Hillary Clinton in the email scandal, that same day, Christopher Steele walks into the FBI with information that ultimately becomes the Steele dossier. Those two dates are not just symbolic, they are meaningful dates in the conspiracy. And in between those two dates, the FBI is pressing to open up a very serious criminal investigation. And that's when the Obama Justice Department decides we're going to shut it down.
So this would have been James Comey at the top of that
Yes.
FBI, whose three
Yep.
field offices were looking into Hillary Clinton. So, I mean,
That's right.
he presumably knew about it. And I guess at this point was okay with it because according to this report, he was not the one to shut it down. It was his boss, Sally Yates, is effectively over him as the deputy attorney general.
Yeah, let's keep in mind how these two departments work. The dirty work always falls down to the deputy, right? You never have the attorney general put her hands on it. You never have the FBI director, with rare exception. Comey actually violated that role. But that's what deputies exist for in these departments, to carry out the will of the boss and to have their fingerprints on the decision. So it's not an accident that it's Sally Yates and the deputy director at the time, Andrew McCabe, that are doing this. There's no chance, zero chance, that the attorney general and FBI director don't know of something this high. These are what are called politically sensitive investigations. The director always gets, as does the attorney general, they get advised when there's a politically sensitive figure who's now under criminal investigation. Now, we got to go get that evidence still. That's part of the paper trail. But the deputies are simply carrying out the duties. but there's very little chance that the principals don't already know.
Okay, so we're not ready to give James Comey any credit whatsoever for the 3 field offices digging into Hillary Clinton. More than likely, he was in on the plan to kill it. We don't have the evidence of it yet. We're just supposing at this point. But we do have the evidence that Sally Yates killed it. And the report seems to suggest, because this is a memo, John, that was written by a DOJ lawyer. And this lawyer seems to be whistleblowing on exactly how this went down, saying like the FBI was looking into this, and Sally Yates at DOJ, where this whistleblower or this lawyer works, shut it down.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's whistleblowing. This might actually have been an exercise of CYA, right? Covering a little bit of a tail here, because the lawyer is a DOJ lawyer who's been detailed to the FBI. So that happens a lot. Agency people get moved between agencies. So he comes from the Justice Department. He's working for the FBI, and he writes this memo down so that everybody has their story straight about why the FBI took a dive on Hillary Clinton. And the goal here is to show, hey, the agents in the field were doing their job, but political pressure on top was coming in.
But he says in writing the memo, this is where I was trying to take it, but he says in writing the memo that they've been told to shut it down by Sally Yates, but he seems to say without explanation, like she didn't say, here's why.
Yeah, I think when we get to the bottom of this, the goal here was to say the FBI was a victim here. The mean old Justice Department kept us from doing this. And so when you read it, you see what needed to be chronicled, which is, normally when an FBI agent has a criminal predicated investigation, you go to your local U.S. attorney, you get a grand jury started, you get subpoenas or search warrants, and you start finding out whether a crime should be prosecuted. What happens after the order from Sally Yates shut it down is the FBI goes and tries to get that normal cooperation that happens every day, 30, 40 times a week between FBI agents and their affiliated U.S. Attorney's Office, and they find a common refrain. We can't help you. You have to go alone on this. Well, you can't go alone. An FBI agent can't get a grand jury subpoena. Every U.S. Attorney's Office is following the direction of Sally Yates and saying, we just can't help you. Sorry, we don't want to go there. Not going to happen. And then on top of that, their own boss, Andy McCabe, the number 2 official, is saying, no overt action unless I approve it. And that was very troubling to the FBI agents on the front lines. Here's why. Everybody knew by that time that Andy McCabe, his wife, had run for as a Democrat for a Virginia state Senate seat and had solicited financial help from Terry McAuliffe, the Virginia governor, and the longtime protege of the Clintons, the former chief fundraiser of the Clintons. He's the guy that presided over the 1990s Asia fundraising scandal that left such a dark mark over the Clinton presidency. So they know this guy's conflicted. His wife is beholden to the Democrats and to somebody that Hillary Clinton relies on to raise money. And more so, at the time Andy McCabe did that, it turns out the FBI had an open investigation against Terry McAuliffe. So the agents now are very suspicious. Why is Andy McCabe allowed to ride herd on this when he has a conflict of interest? And why is the Justice Department not helping us when every time we go for a grand jury, we normally get our help? They knew the fix was in it. At some point, this lawyer is asked to put together a chronology so that there is a record of exactly who said what when. And that's what this document represents.
So what do we think the effect of the sparring between President Donald Trump and the Fed is going to be? Can the Fed take the right action at the right time? Do we trust in that? Or are we going to be looking at a potential economic slowdown as they slow roll any of their moves as they worry about his tariffs? And what exactly does all of this mean for your savings? You might want to consider diversifying right about now with gold through Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been viewed as a safe haven in times of economic stagnation, global uncertainty, and high inflation. And Birch Gold makes it incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. If you have an IRA or old 401k, you can convert that into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or just buy some gold to keep it in your safe. First, get educated. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. Just text MK to the number 989898. Again, text MK to 989898, and you'll start the process of just getting the 411 on what it means to own gold. Consider diversifying a portion of your savings into gold. So if the Fed cannot stay ahead of the curve for the country, at least you can stay ahead of the curve for yourself. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.